everyone, I'm Lily, and I'm super excited to have you here. Welcome to our channel, Easy Peasy English. If you want to learn English the easy way and speak confidently in real life, you're in the right place. Let's get started with Ryan before you go.
Hi guys, I'm Ryan.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Okay, let's unpack this. Okay. Because I was thinking, if an alien intercepted a transmission to try and learn how humans live on Earth, right? The most revealing document wouldn't be like poetry or a history book.
Oh, definitely not. It would be something totally mundane.
Right. It would be an ESL YouTube video about a woman named Jessie waking up at 6 a.m.
Honestly, it really is the perfect artifact. Because, it's designed for English language beginners, so it's completely stripped of nuance. It doesn't editorialize at all.
Yeah, no opinions, just facts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just gives you the raw, unfiltered data of a human Tuesday.
Spot on. So for everyone listening, our source material for today's deep dive is a transcript from a YouTube video by the Mr. English channel.
Right.
And we have these two hosts in the video, Emily and Paul, and they are basically breaking down the daily routine of this woman, Jessie. And on the surface, it's just a list of the most mundane things imaginable.
It really is. Just basic daily tasks.
But if you look at it through that alien lens I mentioned, this simple language lesson turns into an incredibly fascinating, almost anthropological snapshot. It highlights all the invisible scaffolding that you and I just take for granted every single day.
Yeah, the things we do without even thinking.
Exactly. And I know we are going to apply some high-level philosophy to, a woman eating toast, but I promise you the payoff is worth it.
Well, what's fascinating here is that by stripping language down to its absolute most basic verbs, right? Like wake up, eat, commute, work.
The building blocks.
Exactly. And tying them to these exact rigid time markers, the source material accidentally creates this high-resolution map of modern time management.
A map. I like that.
And what that map reveals is, frankly, how deeply our biological rhythms have been hijacked by industrial schedules.
Oof. Hijacked is a strong word, but you're not wrong. And I want you, the listener, to keep that in mind as we go through this deep dive. Think about your own morning today. Map it against what we are about to discuss.
It's a great exercise.
So let's look at the very first thing that happens in the text. Jessie's alarm goes off at 6 a.m. And she specifically says, I don't like waking up early, but my job starts early.
Yeah, the classic struggle.
Right. And then Emily and Paul chimes in, and they mention they wake up around 7 a.m. And they all agree that the alarm clock is, quote, not always our best friend.
Which, that is a very polite way of saying it's basically an adversarial start to the human experience.
Oh, totally. An adversarial start.
Because, biologically speaking, the human body is being violently yanked out of a restorative sleep cycle by a machine. And the timing of that interruption is dictated entirely by the demands of an employer, not the sun, not your circadian rhythm.
Just the boss saying it's time to go. And what follows are these very specific physical grounding actions. Jessie gets out of bed, she goes to the bathroom, brushes her teeth, and washes her face.
Right, the routine.
Yeah, and she specifically notes that washing her face makes her feel more awake, which sounds obvious, but there's actually more to it, right?
Oh, absolutely. There is actual neurobiology at play there.
Yeah.
It's called the mammalian dive reflex.
The mammalian dive reflex. Okay, break that down for us.
So when cool water hits your face, it triggers your trigeminal nerve. And that sends an immediate signal to your brain to increase alertness and jumpstart your respiratory system.
Wow. So it's a literal jumpstart.
Exactly. Yeah. She isn't just cleaning her skin, She is literally executing a physical reboot sequence to force her biology to comply with the 6 a.m. mandate.
It's the system turning online. That is wild. But then we get to what I think is the real start of the modern day, the kitchen pivot.
Ah, yes, the kitchen.
Jessie heads to the kitchen to make coffee. She just says, I love coffee. Emily and Paul echo this entirely. They call it an absolute must. Paul even uses this incredible phrase. He calls it the coffee connection.
The coffee connect. The brilliant phrasing, really, because it's not just a beverage in this context.
They're right. It's more than just a drink.
Historically, coffee was the fuel of the Industrial Revolution. It replaced mild beer as the morning drink of choice because factory owners needed a stimulated, focused workforce.
Wait, people were drinking beer for breakfast?
Yeah, mild ale. But coffee replaced it. And today, it serves the exact same purpose for the knowledge worker. It's the chemical bridge between the sleep state and the productivity state.
Looking at this list, it just hit me. We talk so much in wellness culture about the peaceful morning routine, right? Taking time for yourself, journaling, whatever.
Sure, the aesthetic morning routine.
Exactly. But look at what Jessie actually does. While that coffee is brewing, before she has even taken a single sip, she checks her phone, she looks at her messages, she checks her emails, and she scrolls through social media.
And Emily and Paul admit they do the exact same thing with news and emails.
The immediate technology tether.
Yes, that tether.
And it makes me question the whole concept of a morning routine. Are we actually waking up to the day, or are we just waking up to our digital obligations? I mean, if we are looking at work emails while the coffee is literally still dripping into the pot, our workday is starting before we've even had breakfast.
That's a really good point.
The office is literally in our kitchen.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it perfectly illustrates a core modern dilemma: the total collapse of the boundary between the private self and the public worker.
Yeah, the boundary is just gone.
Historically, that boundary was physical. You had to put on a coat, walk out the front door, and interact with the physical world to get the news, the mail, or the boss's instructions. The home was a fortress of the private self.
And now,
that boundary is dissolved. The outside world is sitting on the counter with Jessie at 6:15 in the morning, and there is a massive cognitive cost to that. Task switching into professional problem solving before your brain is fully awake, it literally spikes your cortisol.
the outside world is in the kitchen. That is a staggering way to look at it. And, it dictates everything that follows. Next, they all get dressed.
Right, the uniform.
Jessie mentions she wears simple clothes for work, pants and a shirt, pointing out she doesn't wear fancy clothes. Emily adds that comfort is key. Then comes breakfast.
Very functional breakfast.
Purely functional. Toast with butter and jam for Jessie. Yogurt and fruit for Emily. Toast and eggs for Paul. It's just fuel. Quick, efficient caloric intake to prepare for the next major phase of the map, which is the commute.
The commute is perhaps the most fascinating logistical requirement in this entire text.
Oh, I totally agree.
Jessie leaves her house at 7 a.m. for a 30-minute bus ride. Emily drives for 15 minutes. Paul drives for 25 minutes. It's a mandated slice of time solely dedicated to geographical relocation.
I was actually thinking about this, and here's an analogy that I think explains why the commute is actually so vital. Think of the commute, whether it's Jessie's 30-minute bus ride where she listens to music and podcasts, or Emily's 15-minute drive. Think of it as an airlock.
An airlock. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yes. Think of the home as one spaceship, and the office as a completely different spaceship. The atmospheres are totally different. The rules of gravity are different.
Right. Different environments entirely.
You can't just teleport from one environment to the other without your brain exploding. You need that 15 to 30 minutes in the airlock to depressurize from home mode and pressurize into worker mode. You're listening to a podcast to keep yourself sane while the mental transition happens.
That is a very apt comparison. And, it explains a lot of the psychological friction we saw when remote work first became widespread.
Oh, when everyone was working from their beds.
Exactly. When people lost the commute, they lost the airlock. They were stepping straight from the bed to the desk, and the atmospheric pressure changes were exhausting.
It was so disorienting.
A 30-minute bus ride might seem like a waste of time objectively, but psychologically, it actually lowers cortisol compared to instantly logging onto a computer because it forces a transition period.
So they survive the airlock. Jessie arrives at work at about 7:30 a.m. Her shift starts at 7:45 a.m. And immediately, a universal modern task begins.
The emails.
The emails. All three of these individuals explicitly state that the very first thing they do is check emails and organize tasks.
The digital drumbeat of the day. And notice how it repeats. They check them in the kitchen, and the first thing they do at the desk is check them again.
It's relentless.
It's the constant synchronization with the hive mind before the independent work can even begin.
And then comes the core activity of their waking hours. As the ESL source material bluntly puts it, they sit down to work on a computer for many hours.
Work on a computer for many hours.
Again, our alien researchers are taking notes. The humans leave their home boxes, travel in metal boxes, to go sit in an office box and stare at a light box for many hours.
You put it like that.
It is profoundly normal to us, but summarized so plainly, it sounds slightly absurd.
It is the defining posture of the modern knowledge worker. Sedentary, forward-leaning, visually locked. But the source material also highlights the critical interruption to this posture, which is the lunch break.
Right. Jessie eats at 12 p.m. Emily and Paul eat around 1 p.m. And the text places a strong emphasis on the logistics of this meal.
They talk about bringing lunch from home, right? Sandwiches, salads, leftovers. They point out it's practical, saving money, eating healthy.
But wait, it's not just about the calories, right? What struck me was the specific emphasis on the social environment of the lunch break.
Yes, the coworker interactions.
Jessie talks about eating with her coworkers. They talk, they laugh. Emily and Paul chime in to say that building friendships at work is important and that laughing makes the workday more fun. Why is an English lesson focusing so heavily on the social dynamics of eating a sandwich?
Because the psychological necessity of the lunch break cannot be overstated. In the context of staring at a light box for many hours, the lunch break is a vital social release valve.
A release valve.
Yeah, if we look at the sociology of the workplace, social bonding and laughter release endorphins and oxytocin, and those directly counteract the stress hormones built up from task management and emails.
So it's literally medicine for the workday.
Exactly. They aren't just eating leftovers, they are actively refueling their mental stamina. And they desperately need that stamina to survive what inevitably follows.
The afternoon block.
Precisely. Jessie and Emily both note that the afternoon involves continuing to work and specifically having online meetings.
The dreaded afternoon meetings. The point of the day where your brain is already 50% depleted and now you have to perform on a webcam.
Exhausting.
So they power through, fueled by their packed salads and coworker laughs, until the workday finally hits its expiration point. Jessie finishes up at 4:30 p.m. Emily and Paul finish around 5 p.m. or 5:30 p.m.
Time to go back through the airlock?
Yes. This brings us to the evening pivot, the journey back through the airlock to the home spaceship. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the immediate aftermath of arriving home is identical for all three of them.
The necessity of decompression.
Instant decompression. The moment Jessie walks through the door, the very first thing she does is sit on the sofa. She watches TV or reads.
And Paul says he sits down to listen to music and unwind for a few minutes.
Emily talks about immediately changing into comfortable clothes and sitting on her sofa to read the news. It made me wonder, is the modern workday so unnatural to our biology that we require a mandated, strictly scheduled recovery period on the sofa before we can even muster the energy to boil water for pasta?
It really seems that way. This raises an important question about the boundaries we were discussing earlier. Notice how deliberate this behavior is.
It's very intentional.
Jessie, Emily, and Paul are all purposefully engineering a buffer zone. Just as the morning coffee was the chemical bridge into productivity, this sofa time is the psychological bridge out of it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Changing into comfortable clothes, the universal modern phenomenon of putting on soft pants.
Oh, I love my soft pants.
Right. It's a physical manifestation of shedding the professional armor. They have to shed the cognitive load of the computer screen before they can meaningfully engage with their actual life.
You survive the deep dive of the workday, and you can't just shoot straight to the surface of family life. You have to sit on the couch for 20 minutes so you don't get the psychological bends.
That is exactly it.
Because right after that, the second shift begins, domestic labor. Around 6:30 p.m., the routine dictates making dinner.
Yes. Jessie says she likes to cook, trying out new recipes. Emily and Paul also cook between 6:00 and 7 p.m., but they admit a very relatable truth. Sometimes they just order food because they need a break from cooking.
Which makes total sense. You've been making decisions since 6 a.m. By 7 p.m., the decision fatigue is so high that what's for dinner feels like an impossible calculus problem.
It really does.
So you order a pizza. But whether you cook or order in, it always leads to the universal constant, the chore, washing the dishes.
The phrasing they use for the dishes in the text is quite revealing, actually. They call it the not-so-fun part. And Paul says there is no escape.
No escape from the dishes. It's incredibly dramatic for an ESL lesson.
It is, but it perfectly highlights the inescapable maintenance of human life. It's like resetting the factory floor for the next shift.
Resetting the factory floor, wow.
Yeah, you fuel the biological machine, but then you have to clean the tools used to fuel the machine day in and day out. If you don't reset the factory floor, the 6 a.m. start time the next day is compromised.
That makes so much more sense than just viewing it as a chore. It's literally preparing the scaffolding for tomorrow. But once the factory floor is clean, the text shifts to what it calls evening connection.
This is the period explicitly reserved for community and self.
Right. Jessie spends time with her family, watching a movie or talking. Emily and Paul mention reading or getting a little exercise, like going for a walk, which they note is good for your health.
It's the only part of the day that feels somewhat autonomous. They aren't anchored to a computer, they aren't confined to a bus, they aren't standing in front of a sink.
But even this free time is strictly bounded by the clock, because the final sequence of the day is always looming in the background.
Yeah.
The wind down.
The preparation for unconsciousness.
Sounds ominous.
Well, before bed, Jessie takes a shower, which serves as a final physical cleanse of the day, much like washing her face was the initiation of the day.
Bookends.
Right. It lowers the body temperature, which is a biological prerequisite for deep sleep. Then she reads a book. Emily also takes an evening shower and reads or listens to an audiobook to relax.
And all of this careful evening choreography is designed to hit one very specific target: going to bed. Jessie goes to bed around 10:30 p.m.
Paul aims for between 10:30 p.m. and 11 p.m.
And the text spells out exactly why. To secure 7 to 8 hours of sleep. It highlights this as absolutely essential advice, noting that sleep is so important for our bodies and minds.
The required reboot. Without those 7 to 8 hours, the entire structure they've built collapses. The early alarms, the cognitive load of the emails, the emotional regulation required for afternoon meetings, none of it works on a depleted battery.
It all falls apart.
The schedule is a closed loop, and sleep is the foundational requirement that allows the loop to begin again the next morning.
A closed loop: wake up, commute, eat, work, decompress, sleep, repeat. And it's all held together by these rigid time markers: 6 a.m., 7:45 a.m., 4:30 p.m., 10:30 p.m.
It's very structured.
So what does this all mean? If you step back and look at this simple language lesson, it forces you to audit your own daily verbs. I mean it. I want you to look at your own time markers. Are you controlling your routine, or is your routine controlling you?
I think it's easy to look at a routine like this and see it as a treadmill, but there's a validation to be found here as well. Yes, routines can feel monotonous. They can feel like a series of obligations separated by brief moments on a sofa. But they also provide the necessary framework that allows us to function efficiently in a highly complex world.
So it's not all bad.
No. The routine absorbs the cognitive load of decision-making. You don't have to decide when to eat or when to work, the time markers tell you. It frees up your mental energy for the actual tasks themselves.
I hear that, but doesn't that just turn us into automatons? If we aren't actively making choices about how we spend our hours, if we're just outsourcing our agency to the clock, are we actually living, or are we just executing a script?
That is exactly the tension of modern life. It's a very fine line between a supportive scaffolding and a cage. The routine protects us from decision fatigue, but it also numbs us to the passage of time.
Which brings me to the one detail in this source material right at the very end of Jessie's story that I absolutely cannot stop thinking about.
Oh, the weekends.
Yes. After meticulously detailing every single hour, every verb, every slice of toast, and every bus ride of her Monday through Friday existence, Jessie casually mentions her weekends. And all she says is that on weekends, her routine is very different and more relaxed.
And she provides absolutely zero details on what that actually looks like.
Zero details. It's a total cliffhanger. The alien guidebook just stops. It leaves us completely in the dark.
It's a fascinating void in the data. We know exactly how humanity maintains its economy and its biology during the week. We know how we reset the factory floor. But the weekend remains undefined.
And I want to leave you with this to ponder. If our weekdays are entirely defined by these rigid time markers and productivity verbs, waking, commuting, computing, escaping the dishes, what actually defines a weekend?
Good question.
Is the weekend simply the absence of a schedule? Is it just the erasure of the 6 a.m. alarm? Or is it defined by an entirely different set of verbs that didn't make it into this ESL lesson? Think about that next time you stare into the bathroom mirror, washing your face at 6 a.m., waiting for the system to boot up. Until the next deep dive, figure out which of your verbs belong to you and which ones belong to the clock.